On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Jim Morrison, the enigmatic frontman of The Doors, died on July 3, 1971 at the age of 27 in Paris, France. The official cause of death was listed as heart failure, though no autopsy was performed, sparking decades of speculation. Some suspect a drug overdose. Others believe his demise was a tragic accident after years of self-destructive behavior fueled by fame, alcohol, and narcotics. Whatever the specifics, his sudden passing in a bathtub at his Paris apartment cemented him as a mythic figure of the 27 Club, a group of iconic artists who died at that young, haunted age. Morrison's death captured the turbulence and excess of the late 1960s and early 70s. He was a poetic rebel, a product of a counterculture that challenged authority, explored altered states of consciousness, and romanticized death. His passing reflected the era's flirtation with self-destruction in pursuit of truth, beauty, and freedom, values that defined the youth movements of the time. Like Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin before him, Morrison became a martyr of the psychedelic age, a symbol of its brilliance and its unsustainable intensity. The immediate aftermath of Morrison's death was shock and mourning among fans, but also a media frenzy that added layers of mystery and conspiracy to his legacy. His partner, Pamela Corson, who discovered his body, died just 3 years later, compounding the tragedy. The lack of clear answers allowed his legend to grow unchecked. The Doors had already begun to unravel before his death, but Morrison's departure ended any hope of revival, freezing the band's work as a time capsule of a revolutionary moment in music history. Over time, Jim Morrison became less a man and more a myth, the Lizard King, an archetype of the doomed rock poet. His likeness graces murals, biographies, and the iconic grave at Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, which has become a pilgrimage site. His words live on in countless songs and poetry collections, echoing a restlessness that still speaks to youth generations later. Morrison's death, like his life, challenges us to consider the fine line between genius and destruction, rebellion and recklessness. We remember him not only for his music, but for the raw force of his personality, a reminder that immortality in art often comes at a heavy price in life. Brian Jones, founding member of the Rolling Stones, died under mysterious circumstances on July 3, 1969, at the age of 27. Found lifeless at the bottom of his swimming pool in East Sussex, England, his death was officially ruled as death by misadventure, attributed to heart failure with traces of drugs and alcohol in his system. Yet, conspiracy theories have long surrounded the case, ranging from accidental drowning to foul play. The ambiguity of Jones's final moments only added to the mystique that would surround him in death. Jones embodied the rebellious, creative energy of the 1960s counterculture. As a gifted multi-instrumentalist, he was instrumental in shaping the early sound of the Rolling Stones, introducing sitars, marimbas, and slide guitars into rock music. But by the late 1960s, the darker side of fame began to consume him. Substance abuse, erratic behavior, and conflicts with fellow bandmates led to his ousting from the band just weeks before his death. His fall from musical prominence mirrored the increasing tension and burnout that plagued the swinging 60s, a decade that began with idealism but ended under the shadow of overdoses and personal tragedies. The immediate consequences of Jones's death were both cultural and symbolic. His passing marked a somber turning point for the Stones, who moved forward with a new lineup and sound. For fans and the public, his death was a grim reminder of the cost of fame and excess. It also deepened the mythology of rock music's self-destructive allure, as he became the first prominent member of the so-called 27 Club, which would soon include Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison. In the decades since, Brian Jones has been immortalized as a tragic genius, a visionary whose innovations helped shape modern rock, but whose demons ultimately consumed him. His legacy lives on in documentaries, biographies, tributes from fellow musicians, and the lingering mystery that clings to his untimely death. Memorials at his gravesite continue to attract admirers, a testament to his lasting influence. Jones's story speaks to the fragile balance between artistic brilliance and personal vulnerability. His death reveals how society often elevates its icons in death, finding meaning in their tragedy. Through music, film, and memory, we continue to reckon with the high cost of creative greatness and the haunting allure of lives ended too soon. Andy Griffith, beloved for his warm portrayal of small-town America, died of a heart attack on July 3, 2012, at the age of 86. He passed away at his coastal home on Roanoke Island, North Carolina, and was buried within hours in a private ceremony, an act reflecting both his deeply rooted Southern values and desire for simplicity in life and death. His passing marked the end of an era for many Americans who grew up with his familiar voice and moral compass on their television screens. Griffith rose to national fame with The Andy Griffith Show, a sitcom that portrayed life in the fictional town of Mayberry, modeled after slower, gentler mid-century Southern communities. In a time of growing civil unrest, political assassinations, and the Vietnam War, Griffith's character, Sheriff Andy Taylor, offered viewers a calm, fatherly presence in a chaotic world. His death in 2012 came at a time when American culture had become increasingly fast-paced and digital, prompting many to reflect nostalgically on the values of kindness, patience, and community that his work symbolized. The immediate response to Griffith's death was an outpouring of love and reverence from across generations. Fans, fellow actors, and political figures honored him not only as an entertainer, but as a cultural touchstone. His influence was felt far beyond television, shaping perceptions of decency and neighborliness, especially in rural America. While he had also earned acclaim for his darker, more dramatic work in films like A Face in the Crowd, 1957, and as a defense attorney in Matlock, it was his role as Andy Taylor that secured his enduring place in American hearts. Griffith's death didn't necessarily shift the course of history, but it did invite a deeper conversation about how entertainment can shape national identity. His life's work served as a bridge between generations, reflecting the hopes of a post-war America and the longing for a simpler, more connected time. In death, Griffith has been commemorated through museums, reruns, and tributes, including a statue in Mount Airy, North Carolina, his real-life hometown and the inspiration for Mayberry. His legacy reveals that while mortality ends a life, it need not end a legacy. Through storytelling, performance, and shared memory, Andy Griffith remains a symbol of gentleness in a world that often forgets its value. Kamal Sunal, one of Turkey's most cherished comedic actors, died suddenly on July 3, 2000, at the age of 55. His death was the result of a heart attack suffered just before the takeoff of a domestic flight from Istanbul to Trabzon. Sunal, known for his intense fear of flying, had only recently begun flying again after years of avoiding air travel. That his life ended not in a dramatic accident, but in the mundane moments before flight, struck an emotional chord with a nation that had come to view him as invincible in laughter and spirit. Sunal's passing marked a profound cultural moment in Turkey. Best known for his role as Shaban, a lovable, simple-minded but morally upright everyman, Sunal's characters embodied the struggles and dignity of the working class during a period of rapid urbanization, political tension, and social change in Turkey from the 1970s through the 1990s. His films, often humorous yet piercing in their critique of inequality and corruption, offered not only escapism but subtle resistance and solidarity for ordinary citizens. His death, therefore, was not just the loss of a beloved entertainer, but a symbolic farewell to a certain kind of moral clarity and authenticity in Turkish cinema. The immediate consequence of Sunal's death was a nationwide wave of mourning. His funeral in Istanbul drew thousands of fans, celebrities, and public figures, many weeping openly. It was a rare moment of unity across political and social divides. Media outlets across the country suspended regular programming to honor him, and his films flooded television screens in tribute. The shock of his passing at a relatively young age magnified his legendary status, freezing his image as eternally youthful, honest, and kind-hearted. Kamal Sunal's legacy has endured through the continuous broadcast of his films, statues erected in his honor, and schools and theaters named after him. His work remains a vital part of Turkish cultural education, passed down through generations. In death, he became more than an actor. He became a symbol of the laughter and decency that can coexist with struggle. His sudden departure reminds us how fragile even our most enduring cultural icons can be. Yet, through memory, art, and collective reverence, we preserve their essence. In celebrating Kamal Sunal, we not only recall a man, but reaffirm the values of humility, justice, and joy that his life came to represent. Rudy Vallee, one of the first modern pop idols and a pioneer of crooning, died of natural causes on July 3, 1986, at the age of 84 in Los Angeles, California. His death, though expected due to his age and declining health, marked the quiet end of a man who had once ignited a cultural revolution in music and media during the Jazz Age and the Great Depression. Vallee's passing reminded the world of a time when radio ruled, and the intimacy of a soft voice over airwaves could stir the hearts of millions. Vallee rose to fame in the late 1920s, just as America was transitioning from the high-spirited roaring 20s to the bleak uncertainty of the Great Depression. With his signature megaphone and sweet, nasally voice, he became a symbol of comfort and escapism for a weary public. His radio show, The Fleischmann's Yeast Hour, and hit songs like As Time Goes By and My Time Is Your Time turned him into one of the first celebrity heartthrobs, drawing intense fan hysteria decades before the Beatles or Elvis. His death in 1986 did not shift political history or bring the world to a standstill, but it did invite reflection on the birth of modern stardom and mass media. Vallee was a bridge between eras, from vaudeville to radio, and then to early film and television. In many ways, he foreshadowed the power of media to create personalities that transcend their era. His influence was foundational for entertainers who followed, and his death underscored how fame itself had evolved. From intimate radio evenings to the rapid fire of modern celebrity culture. In the wake of his passing, Vallee was honored by peers and historians alike, with retrospectives aired and renewed interest in his recordings. While younger audiences may not have recognized his name, those who lived through the mid-20th century remembered him as a comforting, melodic presence in uncertain times. His star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and the continued use of his music in period films serve as lasting testaments to his impact. Rudy Vallee's death, gentle and unceremonious, reminds us that cultural revolutions often begin not with a shout, but with a song. In remembering him, we reflect on how memory and legacy are shaped, not only by fame, but by the emotional resonance a voice can hold across generations. Noelle Neil, widely recognized as the first actress to portray Lois Lane on screen, passed away from natural causes on July 3, 2016, at the age of 95 in Tucson, Arizona. Her death marked the end of an era for generations of fans who had grown up watching her as the quintessential journalist opposite Superman. While not a seismic event in political or cultural history, Neil's passing invited a heartfelt reflection on the evolution of female representation in media and the enduring legacy of early television heroes. Neil began her portrayal of Lois Lane in the 1948 Superman movie serials, and then reprised the role in the 1950s Adventures of Superman television series alongside George Reeves. At a time when women were often relegated to domestic or romantic roles, Neil's portrayal of Lane offered something new, an independent, curious, and ambitious reporter who held her own in a male-dominated world. While still bound by the gender expectations of her time, her character's intelligence and courage helped lay the groundwork for stronger female characters in decades to come. Her death came during a time when the superhero genre was seeing a massive resurgence in global pop culture, reminding fans of the genre's humble origins. It also coincided with increasing conversations around the role of women in media, making her legacy particularly resonant. The loss was felt deeply among comic book enthusiasts and television historians who saw Neil not only as a trailblazer, but also as a symbol of television's golden age. In the years following her passing, Neil was remembered with tributes at comic conventions, retrospectives, and even a bronze statue of Lois Lane in Metropolis, Illinois, where she had long been celebrated as an honorary resident. Her life and work continue to be revisited by scholars and fans alike, illustrating how popular media can influence societal perceptions of gender and heroism. Noelle Neil's death reminds us that legacy isn't always about world-changing actions. It can also be about cultural imprints left quietly, through consistent, meaningful work. Through television reruns, fan communities, and historical accounts, Neil lives on as a pioneer in a genre that continues to shape modern mythology. Her passing underscores how we honor not just the superheroes on screen, but the real people who helped bring them to life. Don Drysdale, one of baseball's most dominant pitchers of the mid-20th century, died suddenly of a heart attack on July 3, 1993, at the age of 56. He was found in his hotel room in Montreal, where he was scheduled to broadcast a Dodgers game. His passing came as a shock to the sports world, not only because of his relatively young age, but also because he was still deeply active in baseball as a beloved broadcaster and ambassador of the game. Drysdale's death reflected a broader shift in how America viewed its athletic heroes. Unlike the hyper-managed, media-trained athletes of later decades, Drysdale came from an era when players were tough, outspoken, and often deeply connected to the communities they represented. He was a symbol of mid-century American grit, known for his fearless fastball, his willingness to pitch inside, and a competitiveness that mirrored the Cold War intensity of his time. In a sport still defining its modern image, Drysdale helped establish the archetype of the power pitcher, imposing, unflinching, and loyal to his team. The immediate consequences of his death were felt keenly by the Dodgers organization and fans of the game. Just hours after his passing, news broke during the game broadcast, causing visible emotion among players and broadcasters alike. Vin Scully, the voice of the Dodgers, paid tribute to his colleague and friend live on air, giving viewers a raw and heartfelt glimpse of how much Drysdale meant to those around him. In death, Drysdale's legend only grew. He was posthumously remembered not just for his Hall of Fame career, marked by a Cy Young Award and a record-setting streak of scoreless innings, but also for his presence off the field, a larger-than-life figure who bridged baseball's old-school ethos with its modern evolution. His legacy lives on in stories, statistics, and honors, including his number 53 being retired by the Dodgers and enshrinement in the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1984. Drysdale's passing invites reflection on how mortality reshapes public memory. We often sanctify athletes in death, not simply for what they achieved, but for what they came to represent: determination, identity, and a connection to simpler times. Through tributes, biographies, and collective nostalgia, we continue to honor figures like Drysdale, not just for how they played the game, but for how they defined an era. Michael Madsen, the rugged and enigmatic actor best known for his work with Quentin Tarantino, died of cardiac arrest on June 3rd at the age of 67. His death marked the end of a career that spanned over 4 decades and captured the gritty, raw edge of American cinema. Madsen's passing, though natural, reflects the challenges faced by aging performers in a rapidly evolving industry and invites reflection on the legacy of an actor who often embodied violence, rebellion, and emotional intensity on screen. Known for his roles in Reservoir Dogs, Kill Bill, Vol. 2, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Madsen became synonymous with a certain brand of cinematic masculinity: flawed, brooding, and unflinchingly real. His death comes at a time when Hollywood is reassessing the archetypes it once glorified. As the industry turns toward more diverse and introspective storytelling, Madsen's gritty characters feel like the closing of a chapter, an echo of an era when anti-heroes and moral ambiguity dominated the screen. The immediate aftermath of his passing was met with an outpouring of grief from fans, colleagues, and filmmakers, many of whom saw him not only as a compelling screen presence, but as an artist deeply committed to his craft. His managers revealed that he was actively involved in multiple independent film projects and was preparing to release a new book, Tears for My Father: Outlaw Thoughts and Poems. These endeavors highlighted a reflective side of Madsen not often seen by the public, one of poetic introspection and creative resilience. Madsen's death didn't just close the curtain on an actor, it also symbolized the fading of a certain type of Hollywood storytelling rooted in raw violence, redemption, and moral complexity. His iconic, ear-cutting scene in Reservoir Dogs remains one of the most memorable moments in modern film history, unflinching, provocative, and symbolic of a filmmaking style that pushed boundaries and defied conventions. His passing reinforces the idea that mortality, especially for artists, transforms memory into legacy. We immortalize figures like Madsen not just through their roles, but through the cultural impact of their work. His presence lives on in film, in the scripts he helped bring to life, and in the countless actors he influenced. In death, Michael Madsen remains a cinematic outlaw, a figure whose work continues to challenge, disturb, and inspire.